When I stepped out into the bright sunlight from the darkness of the movie house, I had only two things in mind: Paul Newman and a ride home. That is the first sentence from the classic book, The Outsiders, written by S.E. Hinton. She was only 16 when she wrote this, and it is about as good as storytelling gets. So if you haven't already guessed it, this episode of The Tap is dedicated to this damn book. My review, insights, spoilers, I'm just going to talk through it, try to relive it as best I can, and just hopefully I can inspire others to go out and read this beauty. See you on the other side of this righteous intro. Oh, made it. Made it through. The intro's the toughest part of this gig, you guys. This gig where I make $0.00. Except for the 530 show. It's the Winners Express podcast that they gave me the keys to. One episode out already. No big deal. But alas, back to my roots. Back to the Trial and Error podcast, which I love so dearly. I can drink alcohol and do all sorts of silly on here. Naughty. No rules, baby. Cancel culture can't get to me here. All right, so on my book, my little notebook, I put down read intro on the checklist. I'll read through this checklist. I'll give you guys a play-by-play. All right, first order of business here. First time reading it. Okay, all right. First things first in this book. It's from an I point of view, first person point of view, which I cannot remember reading one in recent memory, because clearly nothing's coming off the top of my head. The first person view is so cool. It's just, they're telling the story. You're inside their head. It's a really cool, creative tool to use to put the reader in the protagonist's head. In this case, it's Ponyboy Curtis, this, I believe, 14-year-old, rough and tumble greaser, slick back hair, leather jacket, cuffed jeans, smoking cigarettes, or a weed, as they like to say yonder. Him and all the greasers, a rough and tumble bunch. They're always fighting with, who are they called? They're called the Socials, but they shorten it to the Sox. It's SOC in the book. So I'm just going to call them Soaks. And if you don't like that, maybe I'll switch it up. Sox. Who gives a shit? That's the opposition. That's the privileged, rich heads on one side of the town. And then Ponyboy and all his homies, the greasers, it's them and all these other greaser kids. They're in the poor side of town. They're downtrodden. They're misunderstood. But Ponyboy, he is smart as fuck. He has good grades. Still, budding as a human being, trying to find himself. And that's, a lot of the theme in this book is just the teenage angst, the emotion. It is so good on so many levels. So I'm going to try to tell this story in some syncrecy, in chronological order the best I can. Fucking Christ. But yeah, love the first person aspect of it. You really get to know and feel Ponyboy, his emotions and what he goes throughout this book, because there's a lot of heavy get a great sense of him, the way he talks, just the ain'ts, the diction. It's you're reading the way people speak, so it's a pretty easy read. There's not a ton of big words because he's not trying to portray himself as the smart kid that he actually is. He's ain'ts and they're also, from what I've heard, takes place in Oklahoma City, so in the South, a little drawl, what have you. There's one kid, Dally, from New York. They're somewhat spread out, but from where they're from, but it all takes place small town, and you really get a feel for that, how the characters interact with each other and what they say, what they care about, what they value too. Their reputation, certainly, and the pristine nature of their hair and their grease. It's perhaps one thing they can control is how they look, regardless of how they act, because they're pretty volatile. But their hair, it could just be this one constant, this one thing that's nice, and they know it's nice, and it's something that's theirs that nobody else has. Perhaps that's why their hair means so much to them. It doesn't cost anything. It costs some hair gel to get it done, or you don't take a shower for a couple of weeks and just use that grease. But they use product. It's good. Good for your hair. Ponyboy is no different. Really loves his hair. Like I was talking about before, the uncertainty and the angst. You get a good sense of it. Hold on here. At the end of chapter 1, there's just something that really stood out of just how back and forth are we in our emotions when we're teens. It kind of brings you back of just, oh, I feel this way in 1 second, and then the next moment you know you have a boner and you're thinking about 20 like different things. Who knows? At 14, going through puberty and all that stuff. Goodness gracious. And in this case, it's Ponyboy. He has 2 brothers. He's the youngest. The middle brother is Soda Pop, and he's like this pretty boy, fancy. All the girls love him. And then his older brother, Derry, who they kind of butt heads. They don't really get along. Derry's the patriarch of the family because their parents died. They're orphans. It's these 3 boys living together, 3 brothers. And they're just always at each other's throats. And Soda Pop's in the middle, always trying to play peacemaker. But that's pretty much the basis of Ponyboy's and Derry's relationship is Derry's trying to like keep him on the straight and narrow and doesn't really allow him to be a kid, to be a teenager. He's very strict, like a helicopter parent, and just trying to keep him in line instead of letting him make mistakes. But it's Ponyboy kind of talking about his feelings about how he handles Derry, and then also you get a view of just how he, he's a teen, he's uncertain, and that's kind of cool that could be such a followable aspect to a character, is just uncertainty. And it's something myself for sure can relate with. Just another mouth to feed. Derry thought I was just another mouth to feed, somebody to holler at. Derry love me? I thought of those hard, pale eyes. Soda was wrong for once. I thought Derry doesn't love anyone or anything, except maybe Soda. I didn't hardly think of him as a human being. I don't care. I lied to myself. I don't care about him either. Soda's enough, and I'd have him until I got out of school. I don't care about Derry. But I was still lying, and I knew it. I lie to myself all the time, but I never believe me. I lie to myself, but I never believe me. Like, that is the end of chapter 1, and it's somewhat nonsensical. It's someone, I don't care about Derry, but I was still lying, and I knew it, because he does love him. I lie to myself all the time, maybe about Derry, about other things, but I never believe me. You don't believe yourself about lying, like you think it's your truth? Oh, it's just, when you're so angry, it's so easy to just hop on those emotions and just ride them and just pretend that they're how you really feel. Golly gee willikers. What a chapter. So it's just, there's no real antagonist at this point. It's out of the first chapter, and it just kind of sets the stage. You have the Soaks, you have the Greasers, and they're back and forth. They rough and tumble and bumble with one another. You get introduced to the characters, one of which is Johnny, who was severely beaten by the Soaks a couple weeks prior. Johnny has a horrible home life. He's often like sleeping out in the park or something like that. Parents suck. And he's scared because he got messed up pretty bad. Taken to the hospital. The other Greasers had to find him. So he's somewhat traumatized. So he walks around with a knife. For protection. And he's just scared. He's not the same kid, as Ponyboy kind of said. He was always kind. Johnny's a teddy bear, not really capable of even using the knife. Dallas, on the other hand, is a wild man. He did some gang shit in New York. Now he wound up in this small town with this greaser gang, and he's capable of anything. Like, he gets into fights. He looks for fights. He's been to juvie. He is just, he's a rogue human being living his life on his terms, and it's foreshadowed that he's gonna, he would prefer to die young, or he is going to die young. That's the foreshadowing, and that he just doesn't care. He's expecting it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you get a little sense of the characters, and as you move along, let's see here. Angst, uncertainty, rejects the Soaks, are rich and privileged, those sons of bitches, fights and brawls. And like Ponyboy's super emotional. Like, he sleeps with Soda Pop. He talks about how much he loves each person, and he goes into intimate detail about what each member of the gang means to him. And it's cool. Like, you just get a good general vibe of who they are. Ponyboy doesn't really like Dally because he's just, Dallas, because he's a crazy man. And he identifies a lot with Johnny, somewhat of the outcast, young, not to be taken seriously. Ponyboy's definitely the youngest in the crew, and Derry's the oldest. He's like, I want to say 21. Just think of a 21-year-old now. Like, I'm 30. I'm thinking of a 21-year-old. They're just a kid, somewhat.
I'm your huckleberry.
technically an adult, but I remember at 21, I had no part of my life figured out. Jesus Christ. Where's the next brew? I'm on to whiskey right now. Oh, all right, moving forward. So the book goes on, and then we go to a scene where they're at a drive-in movie. Ponyboy loves movies. He definitely identifies with it. He's well-read. Definitely loves him some movies, some escapism possibly, or for his mind to be entertained in any way, shape, or form. I guess that's why we all go to movies. Any way. He meets Cherry Valentine, this cutesy little girl, a soak. Their boyfriends are out drinking somewhere else. There are these lone ladies. And there's one other girl there. I forget her name. I think it's Morgan, perhaps. But they end up being chill with the greasers. They talk, and it's Ponyboy, Johnny, and one other who's kind of wisecracking. Dally comes up and starts talking to Cherry, being aggressive, like, hey, baby, da-da-da-da-da. Just total jackass. Ladies' man, just hitting on him, just being obnoxious. Goes and gets him a Coke. I think Cherry pours it out, or pours a little on his head, or just pours it out. I reject your offering because you're such a dick earlier. And he was getting kind of loosey-goosey. And eventually he's scared, not scared off, but he scampers away. He's just pissed off. He's like, I can't do nothing to these wenches. And so the chapter goes on, and you start to feel that Ponyboy and Cherry have, a little something. They're both in high school. There might be something there. The chapter goes towards the end, and it's a great night of movies, getting to know each other, getting to know Cherry, feeling this young romance. And then she drops the bomb, and I identify with this so hard. She says, oh yeah, hopefully maybe we won't hang out again. They really connect. And she kind of humanizes the Soaks a little bit of just how they go through too. Just because they're rich, privileged, whatever, they have their own problems to deal with. And so there's and she's a good representative of somebody who's even culture, her mindset and just viewing people, giving the greasers a chance. Yeah, she says greasers, but I mean, it's just their diction. And so anyways, lovey-dovey, as Ponyboy's kind of feeling. And then she says, maybe we won't hang out again because I think if I see Dallas again, then I'm going to fall in love with him. I was just like, what the f*** did I just read? This sucks. A punch to the gut. It is the equivalent of finding out this girl is super cute. You court them. You think it's something, and then the bomb is dropped that you are indeed nowhere else but the friend zone. Oh my God, rip your heart out. It is the scene from Dumb and Dumber. Throbbing heart, put in a doggy bag. Good day, sir. Fall in love with the bad boy, the dick, the asshole, this disrespectful hooligan. And you're about to fall in love with him. What's wrong with the nice guys? God damn it. Oh, moving forward. So that sucks. All right. Cherry, yeah, met you. Reminded of the team. So I guess I'm not going on the checklist. I don't give a shit. I'm just mumbling at this point. Remind me of the mini heartbreaks. That's what I call them. Not the many. Of just how many girls you think are so super cute, then you just get rejected. Boom, bang, bam, whammy. Punch to the heart. And you're too late. You give love. Bad name. Develop a hatred for the Soaks. You really develop a hatred for the Soaks. They're driving around. They're just dickheads. Even though Cherry does vouch for them, I'm not buying it. So anyways, Ponyboy's coming home from this movie outing, and he gets into it with Derry at the house, and he's like, screw this, because Derry smacks him. Smacks Ponyboy for running his mouth. So Ponyboy's off running, and he just is hustling out into the park area. He meets up with Johnny. They're chilling. They smoke cigarettes. It's getting cold out. Ponyboy's just sitting there shivering. The dead of night, and none other than the Soaks Mustang comes creeping around the park. They get out of the car. Ponyboy and Johnny are chilling by this fountain, and then the Soaks get out and accost them. The accosting turns into an altercation. One of the Soaks takes Ponyboy, who's he trips back a little bit. He's like, ain't no bitch. So they start getting into it. And Ponyboy gets his head stuffed into the water, and he's about to drown. He's legit about to drown. Oh my God, the suspense builds, and then suddenly the pressure that's on the back of his neck is released. He falls back. He is just freezing cold. The water, his adrenaline's pumping, and he looks to the side and he sees the guy that had his hand on his head. He's laying there with a pool of blood starting to spread over his body. Wild. Then we see Johnny. He's got his knife out. Johnny gutted the bitch. Oh my God, you love to see it. You love to see it because you hate the Soaks so much at this point, and then Johnny gets him. The other Soaks make a beeline for the Mustang. They get out of there. Johnny and Ponyboy are in some deep water. Good Lord, they're drowning in this deep water. But alas, there's a lifeline. They go straight to fucking Dally, baby. They go to Dally. They say Dally. They knock on the door. But they knock on the door of this one kind of douchebag. He's like not a rival gang. He's another greaser, but just in a different crew. And Dally goes, hangs out with them. A little house party going on. And they meet this guy like, hey, go get Dally. Shortly, Dally arrives. And he's like, what's going on, boys? And they tell him everything. We killed this guy. Like, and I was kind of like, Ponyboy, like, you don't got to trip. I mean, just lie. Let Johnny go off and do his thing. But I guess he's in it too. I was just like, this sucks because it was only in self-defense. Who knows if that... And the Soaks were drunk. Pissed drunk, by the by. Blacked out drunk. Who knows what could have happened? You think, oh, it's just a prank. But soon enough, you drown. Ponyboy, you can't have that. So you gut the son of a bitch that's drowning your friend. Face repercussions later. And so... Goodness gracious, what's his name? Dally. He's just like, oh, shit, you guys, I can help you out. Don't you worry. He gives him a revolver that he's like, I usually have this on me, but it's never loaded. It's just as like a bluff. But Ponyboy's gonna like, can we believe this guy? Who knows? He's a wild man. He gives him a bunch of money, not a bunch of money, like $50, and the revolver. He says, all right, you're gonna take this train. You're gonna go to this town that's far away. You're gonna go get into this town. You're gonna look for this church. It's out in the boonies. I will meet you there when the heat dies down. He said, in the meantime, one of you guys has to go use this money, get a bunch of groceries, like survive up there till I can come and get you and like let you know what's going on. Because the cops are going to be like, they're going to be a buzzing, baby. So they hightail it out of there. Ponyboy and Johnny are now on an adventure. It is the dead of night. They just disappear. Just wild. So we get through that. Dallas gives them a gun and some money. And eventually they get to the church. And it's Ponyboy and Johnny. It's really cool. Like, they're out on the lam. The book doesn't deviate to anybody else's perspective of what's going on at this time. It's just Ponyboy. And it's him and Johnny connecting. They're talking. They get a bunch of bologna and like have sandwiches and a bunch of cigarettes. And it's kind of foreshadowed. Ponyboy's like, man, like if you let one match go, this church can go up in flames. It's so old and rickety. Later, I mean, I guess hindsight, it's on the nose, but you don't get it. It's like, all right, so be careful with your cigarettes, whatever. And Johnny also gets a copy of Gone with the Wind because he doesn't read very well and knows Ponyboy reads, and so Ponyboy would read to him. And this goes on day in, day out. He's sore from from sleeping on the stones. And also a big kind of character building moment is Johnny brings back hair bleach, because they need to look different. They can't be looking like the kids that the Soaks are going to describe to the cops. So it's not a huge amount. There's a couple of paragraphs dedicated to what Ponyboy's hair means to him. He's like, oh man, like, he put effort into that hair, and now he's got to cut it and bleach it. So he sucks it up. He gets the job done, and so they're essentially, they're on the lam. Ponyboy ends up hating the bologna. The morale's getting lower and lower. Johnny recites a poem to Ponyboy. They get up one morning, and he talks about how certain moments are like golden. I forget the poem. Let's see. You know what? Since I have the internet available to me, why don't I read it? Poem in the outside.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.
From Robert Frost. Nothing gold can stay.
Happy New Year.
The text. Nature's first green is gold. Her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaves flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf. So Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes away. Goes down today. Nothing gold can stay. And what a great poem. They're on the lam, and it's just dealing with what is golden, what means the most, what is such an amazing aspect of life, and things within it are their impermanence. Things that we know can't last forever. Take it like if it's a vacation, or say a dog, pets, whatever it is, time with somebody you don't see very often. Those moments are golden because they can't stay. They're never gonna last forever. Otherwise they wouldn't be so special, because we have it. It's knowing that we won't have it forever that we take so dearly, that we can really identify with. And it's really cool. That might be even more of an emphasis on this time Ponyboy and Johnny have together. So time passes, and Dally eventually gets up to the cabin and says what's good. So he's like, all right, you guys, I'm going to take you down to town. And like the Johnny and Ponyboy are starving. I'm going to take you guys back down to town, like go to the little deli and grocery store. So they get down there, and they're just eating the shit out of these like steak sandwiches. Like the book describes it, like how hungry they are and how desperate they are. And they're just putting these sandwiches down, drinking Cokes. And Dally tells them what's going on with the cops and the dead Soak and all that shit. The cops aren't aware of them, whatever. And it's just a small update. And it's kind of like bleak. I'm like, how are they going to pull this out of the hat without getting caught by the cops? How is it going to get salvaged, this story? It's going to happen to these characters that I start to care for a little bit. Before anything else happens, there's a little smoke on the horizon. And the crew realizes, because there was a school bus there, and a kid's on a field trip. We hear that earlier on in the book, and now there's a fire coming from the direction of the church. The boys, the characters, get up there, and they realize, okay, holy shit, these kids are in the church that is currently on fire, because the teachers before were freaking out because they didn't know where a couple kids were. They thought they were in line. Where could they be? Of course they're in a church that's on fire. It's set ablaze. So these hoodlums, these greasers, brave the flames and get in there. They pull some Cal Fire shit, get inside the church, save the Niños, most of the Niños, because Ponyboy, he's pulling his dude. They're coughing on the smoke. Their lungs are burning. They're getting kids out. They save all the kids. However, a beam falls from the roof, and it lands on goddamn, what's his face? Johnny. It lands on Johnny. It just crushes him. But the kids are out safe, and somehow like they're managed to get Johnny out of there. I think Ponyboy loses consciousness, the smoke, or I forget what happens. But he ends up being hospitalized. He doesn't see Johnny. Dally's there. I think he's got like a broken arm, but they save the kids. And they're updated. His brothers are there, and it's Ponyboy bedside. And essentially what happens is the news reports everything that, like, this kid that's like wanted for murder, or these knucklehead kids are heroes. They saved all these kids from the fire. They're made to be heroes. And they're kind of like, oh, we're scumbags. Anybody would have done this or whatever. But it just shows that, they are the good guys. For as as they can be at times in society, they're a nuisance, but they save lives. And that means something. They also reveal that Cherry Valentine is also now a mole for the greasers amongst the Soak ranks. She's going to give them all this intel. It's just going to be fabulous. There's a brawl coming, a big one that's going to decide who's going to own the official turf, the greasers or the Soak. So that's kind of the new plot point moving forward. They're out of the church. Ponyboy's not arrested. Like, they're going to have a court date later, but Johnny's up. Johnny's in critical condition, and Ponyboy slowly recovers. He reads, like, they never really finish Gone with the Wind. Cherry's a spy. Eventually, so Ponyboy gets better, and Dally's pissed off because his arm's busted. Like, he's not going to be able to get into the fight, the big brawl between multiple gangs of Soaks, multiple gangs of greasers. And so Ponyboy gets better. He's like, all right, we can't wait to like get in this fight. Let's do it. Like, it's all the gang members chilling at Dairy, Soda Pop, and Ponyboy's house. They're chilling there, just kind of talking, shooting the shit, smoking cigarettes. And they're like, all right, let's roll out. And all of them are just going crazy. Like, they're getting pumped up. They're ready to get in this fight. They meet at this vacant I can't remember where. They meet at this undisclosed location. They meet up with other gangs, and Ponyboy kind of, he meets up, he talks to the head soak, actually, in the hospital. Let's rewind for a second. Ponyboy talks to the head soak. The head soak comes to see Ponyboy in the hospital after the church fire. And he says, hey man, like, I'm not showing up to this brawl. I'm not showing up to it. It's just, I'm so over it that Bob, the dude that got stabbed, he was my friend. You know, he's a good kid. He drank, but he was a good guy. You know, he was my friend. And for how much fervor I had in my hatred for the Soaks, this humanized him a bit to hear the humanity within this guy. He was the dude driving the freaking Mustang. And to hear this side of him, he's like, oh, it sounds like he's truly changed if he's not going to go join the fight. So anyway, that's kind of in your head, and Ponyboy develops something of an understanding and like a mutual respect for that one in particular Soak. But he's still going to go and fight. It's not going to stop anything. No, there's not going to be this miraculous ceasefire. No doves flying. There is going to be a brawl. The Soaks show up in their cars, and Derry goes out front. He's like,
"Hey, Freak Show!
Little boys, what's going on? What's good? Who's going to take on the f***ing champ? King Kong ain't got nothing on me." Derry's like an he could be a collegiate football player, but he's working full-time to support the family. And I guess he did play a little bit of football, but had to drop out. And one of his teammates, who's a Soak, his previous teammate, walked out, a dude equally as big. And Derry recognized him. He's like, all right, what's good, dude? Like, let's get after it. Like, to start the fight. Just an Achilles moment. He comes out just pumped up, ready to go. And something distracts Derry for a moment, and the Soak just cracks him, and then everybody just starts jumping in. It's a big fight. Ponyboy's doing okay. It's just stuff and nonsense. And no weapons. It's just an absolute ass whooping. Ponyboy sees some stuff. He gets mollywopped. He gets just crushed in the head, like chin. He gets like he's on the ground. We later find like he is for sure concussed. It's bad. And then Dally comes out of nowhere, and he hops in the fight. He's not going to stay out of this fight. He kicks some ass, and then eventually, a little bit of fighting, some cool writing, and the brawl ends. Making sure it's still recording. The brawl ends. It's dope. It's done. They rush the hospital afterwards. So Greasers win. Greasers territory. The war's over. They go see Johnny in the hospital, and they're kind of making demands like, we're going to see him. And, like, the nurse is holding him back, and like I think Dally like holds the doctor up by his collar. He's like, we got to see him. Where's he at? And like the way it's described, the way the doctor says, he's like, all right, yeah, go see your boy. Go hang out with him. The way the doctor looked and how he sounded when he said that indicated that Johnny's done. Johnny is he is finitoed. Call the Reaper. We got another one for him. Johnny's time is severely limited. And it's just those little things, those little emotional moments, those little heartstring pulls by the author are really well done. You go in there, and that's the infamous, everybody knows, like, stay golden, Ponyboy. Stay golden. It's just be present, be you, to be present at all times. Like, that's golden. We can just be present in you. Yeah, I'm just repeating myself. And then he dies. And then Johnny dies. You're like, no f***ing way Johnny dies. It's so many burns. He broke his back. It was said by a doctor, and Dally can't handle it. He's losing his mind. He goes off. He runs off, and then Ponyboy's just kind of there. He's not really accepting it. He's a little numb, but anyways. He needs to recover more. He ends up back at his house because he did have a concussion. He was messed up. And then as the story continues, Ponyboy is not really accepting it. He's not really... Oh, it's later that night. Sorry. Later that night. Like, they're home. They're talking. Like, Johnny's dead. And then something happens where they go out to this lot. They hear a commotion, whatever. And Dally is running for it. This is the next chapter after Johnny dies. Dally's running for it. And... he like apparently stole something. I think they get a call like, hey, I stole something. No, Dally calls him. I stole something. Meet me over here or whatever. Like, he needs to get out of a jam. He's hustling, and the gang arrives just in time to see the cops behind him. He pulls his fake revolver it's a real revolver, no bullets, and the cops light him up. Dally goes down.
And a happy new
Dally
year.
goes down. It's just your heart is taking a beating at this moment. You're just like, this is so real, and it's just hard for the characters to bear. Ponyboy is in denial for a little bit of it. Like, it's some PTSD of how this is affecting him emotionally. He's starting to lose it in school, something he always excelled at. He's really behind in his grades. He's letting him slip. He's being uncharacteristic. He's irritable. He's not himself. Like, you get a real sense of despair within Ponyboy's character. And you're just like, like, there's only so many pages. This is only 180 pages, this Libro. 180. And to pack so much emotion and storytelling within this bit of writing, with only a sliver left to read, you're a little worried. What's going to happen? Is it going to be a happy ending, bad ending? Like, the story has been pretty, the deep, dark depths of the hero's journey. Let me tell you. And I'm going to tell you. Moving forward, so Brawl happens. Yes. Ponyboy goes through depression. Yes. And the story goes on, and eventually it gets into Ponyboy and Derry get into a fight. Not a fist fight, but they start yelling at each other again. It's the same old. And eventually Soda Pop is like, he screams at him. He's like, he's always cool, calm, and collective. He's always been the constant in the chaos of their lives. And he loses it and cusses him out, and he makes a run for it. Derry and Ponyboy, they go after him, wrestle him down in the park, and they have a good heart-to-heart. He's like, yo, I'm going through stuff too. I just can't stand it when you guys are fighting. I can't stand it. He finally broke. And they all hug it out, and Ponyboy and Derry agree, like, hey, we're not going to fight anymore. It doesn't mean we're always going to agree, but we're not going to be fighting anymore. This sucks. I can't stand it. Let's be brothers again. Let's do it. And it's just such a good, after everything they've been through, that maybe that heartbreak and everything they went through is the sealant. It's what the glue that brings these brothers together, to bring the family back together, for them to just have a good morale boost after so much pain and heartbreak. And so that's a good reconciliation of Ponyboy. Like, there was a court hearing and everything before all this, but Ponyboy was acquitted. It was all good. Like, people testified, whatever. Ponyboy, I think maybe some community service. But he was good from the law. His character is exempt from it. No longer a problem. But what is still a problem are his grades. And he talks to his teacher. He's flunking out of this English class, and the teacher's like, all right, well, the only way to pass is, like, you have to do this. It's a type of essay. I forget the exact verbiage they use to describe this thing, but you're writing an essay. It's a topic, and Ponyboy is not exactly sure what to do. He's just like, how is this gonna save my grade? This sucks. He's just uninspired. He's not himself. And then after everything that happened with his brothers, he thinks about it, and he gives his teacher a call. It's way past bedtime. It's like 11. Teacher answers. He's like, hey, is it cool if I write my essay on this subject? I forget if he specifically phrases it, or like what he uses to describe what he's writing about, but it's essentially the greasers. It's his experience, and the very first sentence of it, he lets you know, this Ponyboy character, he lets you know what the first sentence is in this report. Oh, he lets you know. Would you like to know what it is? I would like to read it again. This whole story, everything that began, every emotion he went through, and the one final challenge of overcoming an F. He's overcoming his F in English class, and he needs to write an report. And it finally began like this. When I stepped out into the bright sunlight from the darkness of the movie house, I had only two things in my mind: Paul Newman and a ride home. That's a book I could read over and over and over again. Fortunately, I have other ones I need to read, of course, but I know I will always be able to go back to this and feel this ride. And I hope when I read it again, I get a lot of the old emotion, the nostalgia. Of course, there's not going to be the mystery of what happens and how impactful that first read is, but maybe I'll be able to get something different from it, pull a different message, possibly. But I loved it. Again, it's only 180 pages. It's only 10 books. Go to the Avid Reader in Davis or something like that. Do not go to Amazon. Oh, amazing book. The Outsiders, and I believe there are other books that S.E. Hinton has written. God, I feel like I'm compelled to read them all. Compelled. As you should be compelled. Now go out. Go forth after soaking in this knowledge. Go forth and read some books. Good day.
You lose! Good day, sir!